Welcome to the Global Spin Podcast with me, Ryan Kramer, where we take a deep dive into the world of global selling and share the secrets to growing your brand in new markets. Whether you're looking to expand your brand, enter new markets, or boost your sales, we've got you covered. Tune in for unscripted, engaging episodes that will take you on a journey of discovery and success. Let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Global Spin Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Kramer, and this is my corner of the internet where I bring the best and brightest in the Amazon and e-commerce space. It's been a while since we've been on the podcast, horse, bandwagon, whatever you want to do, but it's been busy over here in my corner of the internet. I'm glad to bring exciting new episodes and just get some great content out there for you, the Amazon seller or the brand who's looking to take their business to the next level. If it's been a while since you've been able to listen or watch us, this show is all about taking your business to the next level. It could be expanding internationally. It could be growing your brand. It could be taking that next evolution forward. So we take a look around the globe. Who's doing that best? What can they offer to the people of this space? And really just kind of hopefully you walk away with a little bit smarter than you are starting today. So like I said, everyone who comes into the show becomes a friend, even guests. They become friends of the show. I just like being able to learn myself, but also hopefully you get that takeaway as well. So let's go ahead and kick it off. Episode 4. We've titled this Entrepreneurial, let me slow that down a little bit, Dreams, Permission, Success, and the Dark Side of E-Commerce. A little dark, a little creepy. But you know what? Sometimes when ChatGPT kicks out a couple cool episodes, it kind of cool ideas, if you will. You kind of go with it, and I like the sound of that one. But our guest today, not only has he been a guest of prior podcasts that I've hosted and been on and talked with him at roundtables, virtual events, things of that sort. He's just off of his seller session speaking engagement that happened in London, I want to say last weekend or so. And he's built brands, he's sold brands, he's engaging brands. He's actually advising brands on their exits. He's exited his own brand to 7-figure exits. I'm throwing that out there. I don't know 100% sure. We'll have to confirm that, but 7-figure exits. And now he's actually sharing his building of new brands coming up. He's shared some insights with me that I'm excited about, and he has a new book coming out as well. So we'll maybe talk a little bit about that as well. But welcoming back to my virtual corner of the internet, if you will, to the first time he's been on the Global Spin Podcast, Ben Leonard of benleonard.pro and all the namesake websites. Ben, welcome to the Global Spin Podcast. Oh, I got you. Well, I'll unmute. There we go. Perfect. Now we can hear you.
Oh, I was on mute. That's my bad.
That's my fault.
It's good to see you. Yeah, it's great to see you. It's first time on this podcast, but second or third time that we've spoken together on podcasts. So
quite a bit. Yeah, exactly. I say I'm gonna get people jackets or something like that. I had some really cool jackets made. I should definitely for people to come on at like 3 or 5 times or whatever it looks like, should just get a jacket for people made or something like that.
I definitely need a jacket because I live in Scotland and it rains all the time. So
it's raining over there right now.
It's been like the worst spring we've ever had.
Oh man.
Yeah, but I'm gonna try and avoid the typical British stereotype of talking about the weather. So
that's okay. It's okay. You're allowed to. It's you're allowed to complain because of where you live. So, but hey, man, thanks for hopping on today. I know it's been a little bit, but you've been busy. You've been around. Not just you're not stuck in Scotland, that's for sure. You're hopping around, talking to people all over UK, but also I think a couple different countries. So, what's been going on since the last time we talked?
Yeah, well, you were right when you said that I just got back from seller sessions. That was fantastic. I've been to 4 or 5, well, basically every seller sessions live conference since it started, but this was the first time I've spoken. I had a blast. It was great. And it was an honor to speak there because I really respect all the other speakers. And of course, Danny for putting on such a great show. So that was fun. And then a couple weeks back, I just got back from Vietnam, which was amazing. I was teaching on the Vietnam sourcing trip, which was
put on by Megla, correct?
Exactly. Yeah. Megla, Marg, and Kev from the India sourcing network are now doing a Vietnam sourcing trip. It was absolutely fantastic. Great country, phenomenal experience, lovely people. And we traveled from North to South Vietnam visiting manufacturers and trade shows. So my job was to be there and teach the delegates as they were sourcing products, and to ask them tricky questions about how are they going to brand and market that, and kind of look at that side of things. And then, the bonus for me was I got to meet my manufacturer in Ho Chi Minh City. So I'm developing a baby brand right now. I've been partnering with a manufacturer over there for a couple of years now to develop this product, and I got to go meet them. So that was fun. I really enjoyed that. Where else have I been? I went to Cape Town in February. I was presenting with my ecom broker's hat on there, the eClimb Summit in Cape Town. So that was fun. And lots more travel to come this year, which is exciting. Now that COVID is kind of pretty much behind us, I love travel and I love meeting people. I'm a very people-y person, so I'm glad that we can do that again.
Absolutely. And I forgot to mention that not only are you an entrepreneur, you're also a dad and a husband. So I know is the family able to travel with you? Like, what's been going on with the family?
We looked at them coming to Vietnam. I would love to have made that happen, but because it was a trip moving from north to south, it didn't quite make sense with young kids. But in the future, when I just go to meet my manufacturer in Ho Chi Minh, and when the kids are a bit bigger and can handle such a long trip, it's like a 14-hour flight.
Not great.
We'll do it, right? And we'll all stay in a nice place, and I'll go visit the manufacturer and we'll have a holiday. Because I want to raise our kids in a way where they explore the world and learn about different cultures and places. And that's something I'm really passionate about.
That's amazing. And because you're obviously an entrepreneur, you're allowed to, obviously do that in the e-com and Amazon
Yeah,
world. You can kind of go and work anywhere. It's nice.
Exactly. It's funny, right? We were on a family holiday back in the winter to Tenerife in the Canary Islands, and we took a prototype of a baby product that I'm developing with us. I took some photographs of my son in it, and somebody suggested that I could write the entire holiday off because I took a couple photos of my son with this prototype. I'm not sure I could get away with that, but we can try.
I mean, yeah, I've heard of quote hacks that you can hire your child for up to it's like $12,500 US dollars in making them work in your your factory before they're 18. I was like, this doesn't sound legal, everyone.
No.
But it is. There's always these loopholes as an entrepreneur. You have to get creative, and if they're working for you, or they're they're not doing your books, but they're they might be packaging some shipments out or FBM packages out of your home or something like that. So you never know.
Yeah.
But that's so cool that so we're talking Vietnam, you're talking London, but you're also talking South Africa. That's quite the trek around the world in the last couple
There's
months.
more to come. I'm going to Estonia next week to speak at the Ambizion event in Tallinn, and then Prague the following week at the European Seller Conference. That's again with my ecom broker's hat on, to help business owners plan their exits. So yeah, lots of things happening, but I think it's the best way. Like I love how connected we are online, but actually meeting people is amazing, right? I think that's where the magic happens, to be honest.
So I'll say this, and let's go ahead and kick into it. I know you as an entrepreneur wear many hats, right? We talked in the intro of you've been a seller, you've exited a business, now you manage and kind of advise people. But then we kind of talked about that in the past. I'm going to set that aside because it's an important part of the entrepreneurial journey, if you will. Going back to being a seller, what's kind of been the changes, if you will, as you kind of put on different hats? And like you said, I have to put on this hat to talk on these topics. But then as a brand, I have to say, oh, I have to go meet my manufacturer. I have to make sure my product that I'm going to launch is going to be just as good. If not, I feel better about what I exited a business. What's that been like for you?
Well, in a word, fantastic. And let me explain why. First, it's important to partner on things, right? So that you actually have the capacity to do all these things, and so that you plug the gaps where you're not as strong. So for instance, with ecom brokers, I founded that with Allison, who is a mergers and acquisitions expert of probably 30 years and one of the top e-commerce accountants in the UK. I'm not that, right? We brought in John, who's formerly of Amazon and formerly of an aggregator, and his skill set. Combine that with me as a current brand operator and someone who's been there and sold and understands the mindset of the seller, we cover all bases. On the baby brand that we're working on, my business partner, Mark, is much better than me at the very tactical day-to-day nitty-gritty of the operations, and I'm better at the strategic brand and vision side. So when you partner with other people who have complementary skill sets, that really helps. But it also frees you up so that you're not completely the burden is not completely on your shoulders. And that's something I think I'll always do now, is to partner on projects. But the other reason it's been fantastic is that actually wearing all these hats allows me to do each project better. So for instance, currently owning and operating brands allows me to understand my clients that I consult for better, because I know what problems they're facing.
Right.
I also understand the issues facing our ecom brokers clients when we're going through a process to prepare their business for exit, which is, we're not just like hey, we'll flip it. It's, we'll work with you strategically over a long period of time. So when you have that understanding, it helps. And at the same time, those hats help my other hats. So understanding what it is that is going to make my business a valuable acquisition target for a buyer helps me reverse engineer the brands that I'm building from the very, very start. Understanding the issues that some of my consulting clients are facing, and they might be like private equity brand portfolios, but it helps me to relate, well, how does that apply to the brands I'm working on? So actually all the hats like are synergistically helping each other. It's like a hat club.
I was gonna say it's you're wearing like a beanie or like a nice like warm stocking, or then you throw on like a visor. All
Yeah.
these different things have different uses, right? But they all do one thing. They cover that head and
Yeah.
have those
Yeah.
different side
Yeah.
effects. I have a question. You were focused on the ecom brokers. I know exiting a business is almost like one person's entire dream, right? We're talking
Yeah.
about entrepreneur dreams. I'm gonna get tripped up every time I say that. It's the R or the L's over here. Gotta get used to that. But when you did that, was there a sense that you were like, I never want to experience that ever again because it was so painful to go through that process, build it up from scratch, and then I'm good. But something brought you back. So I'm curious, what
Yeah.
brought you back into selling? What got you back into like building not just one brand, but newsflash, people, he's building more, so there's
Yeah.
more than just one coming. So
Yeah.
what was that like?
After I sold, I could technically have retired. That would have been very boring.
You're talking about
I
like financially and your
Yeah,
separate life. Yeah.
exactly. That would have been boring and uh, a poor example for my kids, to be honest. Um, and I felt like I wasn't done yet. I have an entrepreneurial fuse to burn through, and some people may know this from hearing me on other podcasts and whatnot, that before I got into e-commerce, my background was in ecology. I'm deeply passionate about environmental conservation.
Right.
But I didn't go into academia because it's quite stuffy and boring, and academics, despite being incredibly smart, they don't get a lot done. Um, I went into environmental consultancy where I felt like I was a small cog in a big machine. It was only when I got a heart problem that I realized, well, that was the catalyst to make me start my business. And I realized that actually I have entrepreneurial DNA. It was passed down to me by my grandparents. So here's the thing. What I want to do, and why I didn't just like, why I came back to this, was I want to burn through this entrepreneurial fuse that I've got for the next 10, 15 years, and then apply everything that I've learned to date and everything that I will learn in the next 10 to 15 years to my first passion of environmental conservation and help them get stuff done. Because actually, a lot of the NGOs and the charities in that space don't get a lot done. But what does happen is when you bring entrepreneurs in, suddenly they get stuff done. So,
Right.
for example, one of the biggest landowners in Scotland is this Danish billionaire called Anders Povelsen, who made his money in clothes. And he's bought vast areas of Scottish countryside in order to rewild it, because a lot of it has been devastated by poor land management. And when you take yes, money, but also entrepreneurial know-how, suddenly people who aren't business people, when you connect the scientists and the knowledge with the business people, magic happens, right? So that's kind of the long-term plan. But I came back to entrepreneurship because I wasn't done, and because I love growing things, right? The most fun is when you're developing it and growing it, and then suddenly strangers on the internet want to buy it from you, or strangers in shops, because one of my new brands is going to go into retail as well.
Yeah, or
Want
you
to
see
buy
it in
things from you.
someone's. Yeah, I was in home and garden. I was gonna say, sorry to interrupt you. I still see products that I was selling back in the day in people's like lawns because I was in the home and garden category. And my wife looks at me and she goes, "That's your thing. That's the product you were selling. That's the one time that you burned through all the inventory in 2 days. And it's
Yeah,
like a story that I keep talking about because
totally.
my CEO looked at me and goes, "How do we sell, 6 figures worth of product in one day?" And that's a cool feeling.
Yeah, it totally is. I mean, like I posted about this the other day on LinkedIn. I remember when I was in the gym a few years ago now, when I first saw someone I didn't know using my product that I developed of their own, they were using it of their own free will. I didn't know this person, they were a stranger. And that was an incredible feeling, and I want more of that.
Yeah, that's really cool. So with that passion, so when you're advising people, is it something that as an entrepreneur, are you seeing people need that passion to start a business? Because we talked about the question, do you need to have business acumen or experience to be able to build a brand or to start a business? I think in certain aspects you might need to for certain industries, but I would say let's pivot to Amazon and e-commerce for a second. Do you need business background and need to know how to run a business in order to either start or really grow a business? And I guess that question would be to you. What are your learnings and what are you telling people in that capacity?
Yeah. No, you don't need experience. Um, Having experience can really help. But also I've seen business experience not help because people have had I've worked with people who've had plenty of experience running their bricks and mortar store or running a hospitality business, and then they try to apply that to e-commerce, and so much of what they think they know about business, what they know is right according to where they came from, but not right in e-commerce, for instance. So actually, sometimes it really helps to start with a blank canvas. You still have to be smart, right? This isn't going to work for somebody who doesn't have a decent number of brain cells between their ears. But you can learn by doing, right? And that's exactly what I did. I had a little bit of an advantage because I had a scientific background. In science, we take a hypothesis, we run an experiment, or we test the hypothesis, we look at what happened, we analyze what happened, we tweak what we do, and we go again. And when you apply that to business, you can quite quickly iterate and improve, whether that's on your product or on your marketing strategies. So that's kind of the way I like to guide people, is to get going and take entrepreneurial risks, because that's what we are as entrepreneurs. We're risk takers, but don't take reckless risks. Take informed risks based on data and the scientific methodology, and you can succeed. You just need to give yourself permission.
So what does that mean? Like
Yeah,
I'm gonna dig deeper because I think this is important. Like we can go and glaze over these concepts. For a person listening to this, I know that they're at the crux of, hey, I'm probably like either treading water or I'm really growing and I need to know like that next door to open. Um, but you need to know like your boundaries, right? But you also need to know like or understand what next steps you need to take to build it and build it further and give yourself permission to
yeah.
either move forward or take a step back and give it to somebody else and hire on, right? So what does that give permission notion mean to an entrepreneur?
Well, I remember two scenarios where I failed to give myself permission and therefore I stalled and did nothing. Here's the first one. I had recently read The 4 Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss. So it was uh, probably, I think I first read it about 2012. Okay. I think it probably came out about 4 or 5 years before that. And I had this idea, he speaks in that book about having a muse, right? And I had this idea that I would set up a website where American tourists could pay me to design them an itinerary to travel around Scotland. And actually, I think that's a half decent idea.
Yeah, not
I
bad.
did nothing about it because I kept on making excuses. I'm not a web developer. I don't have a degree in tourism. I'm not qualified to do this. What if people don't buy it? How am I going to drive people to my website, etc.? Right? Every excuse. Then in 2016, no, that's a lie. In 2012, I had the idea for my first fit brand, Beast Gear, the one that I grew and then sold. And I did absolutely nothing about it for 4 years. And the only thing that sparked me into action was having a heart problem that stopped me taking part in my fitness hobbies, and being my mental health being absolutely in the gutter. And other people shouldn't have to do that to give themselves permission to start, because people will give themselves tell themselves excuses to save themselves from pain. That's what it is, right? As humans, we are hardwired to want to thrive and avoid pain. And pain can come in many forms. Physical pain, yes, but the mental anguish of failing, or what will our friends and family think? Will they think this is a silly idea? Will they secretly be gleeful when I fail? I'm not qualified to do this, etc., etc., right? But actually, you just have to get over that block and give yourself permission to start, because there's no one better than you to turn your idea into a brand. Because ideally, you're creating a brand that you're passionate about and that solves problems related to something you're interested in. Could be that you're a professional dentist and you want to solve problems that you face in your profession, or it could be that you are, a scuba diver and want to create a great scuba diving brand. Regardless, when you do that, there's no one better than you to market it. So that's all the qualification you need.
I mean, that's, and it's funny you say dentist. We had Antonio Bindi on here, who was a former dentist, and actually uh people were asking about wristbands from just global concerts like Coachella or like festivals, and so they just gone into it. It was like that quote side hustle. But I kind of want to, and he kind of grew it from there, and now he's a global brand. But I kind of want to take a step back. Is passion, you say passion is needed, is that necessarily required? I say required, it's not required. Is that easier to build a brand than not having passion for it? Like I can be building or building a brand around, you know, dog acne cream. I don't really care about carrying the world of like dog acne or whatever that benefit might be, but it might be something of an
Yeah,
opportunity. So what's that
yeah.
balance that you need to have?
Well, I agree. You can build a brand around something that you're not passionate about. I would argue that it is always going to be limited, and there's going to be a ceiling that it won't push through, or wouldn't push through as quickly or as well if you were not so passionate about it. What I would say is that it would really help if you are a really smart technical person who has, perhaps you built a brand before and you have a system that you're confident can grow that brand and make it a big success despite your lack of passion for it. That's fine. I would say you ought to have people in the organization who really are passionate about it. So that's where partnerships can work well.
Mhm.
But I kind of I put my flag on the hill of building a brand around which you personally are passionate about. But I take the point that especially experienced e-commerce entrepreneurs can apply principles and build something that they're not necessarily passionate about.
Yep. I would agree. I go towards the brand again. I love building the brand. The thoughts, the feelings, the get of either opening a package or using it to solve that issue or that problem or creating a solution. It is something that it's a feeling that you don't get, and I know it's a beautified way to experience and to describe something. But to be honest, like the best brands in the world, they make you think or make you feel or make you get that emotional response or action. So again, whether it be Apple or it could be be scared, not saying one is the opposite of the other, but both gave somebody permission to go with it and to achieve some sort of using my laptop now to get work done. But your products were helping people get into fitness, so there's always that benefit at the end of the day. um
Yep.
has that changed a lot recently? I feel like there's this notion of throw anything on the internet back in the quote Wild West days of Amazon e-commerce. Don't
Yep.
need a name, a brand. You see, even now, Amazon is putting lawsuits to brands who their names are just like gibberish number one, gibberish number two. It's nothing. Those aren't brands, right? Those are just people
No.
who are trying to sell a widget.
Exactly. So here's what there are several definitions of brand, and perhaps none of them are wrong. Here's what I like. I think a brand is a group of products, and they can be physical or digital. A group of products that solves problems for a particular group of people. And branding is how your brand makes people feel, and marketing is how you tell them about it. So when you put it like that, it's kind of like the thing, when a tree falls over in the forest and there's no one there to hear it, doesn't make a noise. So technically on paper, you could have the best branding in the world. But if your marketing sucks and you can't tell anyone about it, then does your brand make an impact? Probably not, right? And that therefore means you don't have a sustainable business.
Is it, and that's the thing, right? I think it's always the chicken before the egg, or what came first. Are people, as a brand or somebody who wants to start it, is it easier to build that following first, or that cult, that community first, and then build a brand off of that? Or is it vice versa, where you build a brand and then you say, welcome to my ecosystem, Beast Gear, come in everyone, like, this is what we're doing. What's
Yeah.
that? What's that right way to do it, if you will, or easier way, I should say?
Well, you can do both, and I think it depends on what you're building, because there's no one size fits all for any business, which is one of the problems that we see on the internet now with all these fake gurus trying to sell people on a kind of hey, just take my method and apply it, and you're going to get rich, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you could have a broad framework, that's fine, but actually everything's going to change for each business. So, for instance, take my new brand in the parenting and baby space. We are developing the products and documenting everything about the development of the products, so that shortly before we launch, we will, in the right places where our audience is hanging out online, which we know because we're doing the work to deeply understand our customers and build a real customer avatar. So where they are, we're going to share the journey of how we developed the product to get people on board and excited about it before we even launch it. On the other hand, you might be building a brand where, there's not that much exciting technical product development going on, right? You haven't been on this journey to the ends of the earth to find the right designers. You're not literally setting your product on fire as you safety test it, which is what we're doing with some of our products. You might be developing, like I have a brand in the sports space,
Right.
and it's very high quality stuff, but the development of the products was very straightforward. So although we're building a community around our business, we're doing that on the back end. So what we're doing is we've launched on Amazon, but Amazon is not our only sales channel. We're also on our own website because we're a legit brand. But we launched on Amazon where we could compel people to buy with our great offer and our great product listing. Then on the back end, that we give them a phenomenal experience where we actually drive them to lots of valuable content that helps them in their life. And we prove that we know what we're doing with a high quality product. So on the back end, we build that relationship, build those fans, drive them into communities, and create our audience and our tribe that way. So you can do it on the front end and the back end, and eventually you'll be doing it on both, right?
You said, sorry, there's a couple things I picked up there. I think that's good to, obviously, for a person knowing, it's never too late to build that following. And obviously for a self-sustaining brand, you want to be able to have that community, that repeat buyer, the person who can go to bat for you, and kind of like shout you out from that capacity. Is there a difference between a brand and then a global brand? And what I mean by that is, you now start looking at the customer avatar, but then you start to look in different places around the world where it means a different thing. That product can mean something completely different in one community versus another. And I'm curious, does that thought process go into the product development, or how you want that brand to sound or think or feel on not
100%.
just yeah.
And this has to be a thought out process. So let me give you an example. Take Beast Gear. Before I sold the business, we were exploring expanding into the Chinese market. And in the end, we didn't. But when we were going through the process of exploring that, it was clear that the way we were going to position our products was very different. We were going to position them with a heavy emphasis on the fact that it's a British brand, because we felt that the connotations of a British brand would go down very well with the Chinese customer. The emerging middle and upper class with lots of disposable income in China likes to buy Western products as a bit of a status symbol. So what was going to be quite hilarious was that some of the products in particular we were going to launch in China were being made in China, but we were going to go heavy on the fact it was a British brand. In the end, we didn't do that. But
Still great. I love the idea though.
but the approach we were taking was very different for the same product. So you have to be culturally aware of what you're doing and who you're selling to.
Sorry, my dog is barking in the background.
Oh, that's okay. Now we've got another guest on the show.
He is a guest on the show, and he likes to talk when it's not his turn. So, well, he was quiet for now, but now an Amazon package is being delivered to my office now, so that's always nice. So it's interesting that the thought and feeling you thought about that. Was that something that just kind of naturally dropped into your lap? Was it something that you said British brand and how Chinese buyers would think about that? How do you know about that stuff? How do you learn? Where are people going to kind of like understand that? Is it just talking to people in that community, or you never? I can't tell what a German consumer is going to tell or feel when they look at my product, but I want to understand it so I can speak to that, right?
Yeah, you have to ask your audience. So in my case, I spoke with my Chinese manufacturer, and we were discussing how together we could launch the product in China. And I was saying to them, okay, so look, you're a young Chinese person who would want to use these products, and I explored building a customer avatar around them, right? Other example, case in point, this is why as e-commerce entrepreneurs, we are nimble, unlike these sort of bureaucratic behemoth large corporations. So, here's another example. When I was expanding my products into Germany, I worked with my German translator, not just to do like a translation of the listing, but to really get inside the psyche of the German consumer to actually not just do a straight translation, a literal translation, but actually translate so that it was appropriate for the German consumer. And that's not just the listings and the product pages on my website, but that went into the inserts were all the same for every country, but there were versions like within the insert, you'd have a little bit for Spain and Germany and France.
Right. Different pages, different.
And then, so people were then driven to different chatbots, different landing pages, where the copy was appropriate for them and what they saw and experienced was appropriate for them. And you can take it to a different level where you're asking your customers. So, actually 2 book recommendations for people. A guy called Ryan Levesque wrote a book called Ask, and a guy called Marcus Sheridan wrote a book called They Ask, You Answer. Both are really helpful books for understanding your audience. I used to have the following situation, and I actually spoke about this at Seller Sessions the other day. We would have customers that we would acquire on Amazon, right? They would buy our product on Amazon, and then through everything that came along with the product, they would end up on our website and we would get their email address. Perhaps they registered a warranty, or perhaps they filled in a pop-up that said they could get a discount or join our deals club. But until they had bought from us on our website, we didn't know exactly what kind of products they wanted, because our brand sold products for boxers, strength training athletes, and conditioning athletes. So that's 3 subcategories. And I didn't want to send boxing information to powerlifters by email, because that's not relevant, and they're going to put me in the spam folder. And then all my emails will end up in everybody's spam folder. That's how it works. So what did I do? I just asked them. I had this email in my welcome series, and if they had never ordered before, they would get an email, and the subject line was, "Can you help me answer this?" Really compelling subject line, which was why the open rate was huge. And then the email was really compelling. It said, "Which one of these are you most interested in?" And there were 3 big red buttons: strength, CrossFit, or boxing. Humans love to click buttons. So when they clicked the button, so let's say I sent it to you, Ryan, and you clicked on strength, it would update the back end of my email marketing tool telling me you like strength. So now I'm going to email you helpful, compelling, free, useful strength training information, like once a week, so that you know, like, and trust my brand and you come back to me. And my competitors on Amazon who are stuck in the Amazon goldfish bowl are not doing that, which is why I absolutely crushed them. And then something else magical happened. When you click on a button, you have to go somewhere, right? You click the button, you're in your emails, you click the button, something has to happen. I would drive that link. Not only did it update my email tool, with the fact that you like strength, but you would land in my chatbot, my Facebook Messenger chatbot, where it would say, hey, Ryan, thanks for telling me you like strength. I'll send you helpful strength information here. So now I've cross-pollinated you into another marketing channel. So I'm always top of mind. So you bought widget A from me on Amazon, but now when you need widget B, you're going to come back to me. It might be on my website or it might be on Amazon. Who cares? I know I've got you now. And then in the chatbot, it would say, and while we're here, here's a quick link to a great strength training article. You'd click on it. It would land you back on my website where I'm going to pixel you. And guess what else? Because I'm driving all this traffic, Google now picks up on this and ranks that article very high.
Mm-hmm.
So even people who've never heard of me and are searching for strength training information find my articles, come to my website, and they buy from me. All these things are the little things that compound with consistency every day that most people are not doing, which is I started doing this stuff in 2016. People still aren't doing it now in 2023. They're just slapping products on Amazon and kind of, praying.
Well, and all this is very it's complex too. I'm not saying like this is easy stuff too. I'm like, I'm sitting here, I'm like, this all makes sense. And I know the listener or the brand who's listening to this is like Ben, that makes a lot of sense. Like the tracking capabilities, everything works in itself. And as a marketer who is trained into marketing and communication and business development, somebody who's learned it, that's how you kind of create this flywheel effect and how you constantly are at top of mind when they're ready to purchase from you. Like that's why you see car commercials all the time. When you're ready to buy a new car, you want to be there when they're in market because they abandon really quickly. So you have to be ready for when they're in market. In a product world, that's very tough to do. And information and technology has allowed us to now target those people more than ever. Why aren't people doing this now? It's not a grotesque concept. It's more of a how I think are people paralyzed where to start?
It's a combination of factors. Some people they got in when Amazon. So let's talk about Amazon for a minute, right? Let's just assume that's your main sales channel. They got in when it was easier. They were not building a brand. They were just selling stuff. And there's been a strong element of luck and they haven't needed to do this. Now they're struggling and they're not thinking about these things because they've never treated their business with the respect it deserves. They've never treated it like a legit consumer packaged goods brand. They've just been selling stuff on the internet.
Sure.
So they're not in the right mindset. Others are just lazy. They know that they could go and do this, but actually the business is ticking along kind of fine and that's okay.
Is it shocking how many people like you feel like you dig in the weeds and they're like, Ben, I
most,
want to sell
most,
this. And you're
most
like,
people are like, I mean, like, I get people come to me for consulting and they're like, Ben, help me do what you've done. And I'm like, I dig into what they're doing now and they're doing nothing. Well, that in a way is great because it's lots of low hanging fruit and I can help them.
Yeah, good for you.
Then I look at businesses that come across our desks at ecom brokers and they want to sell their business for silly money, but they're just selling stuff on Amazon with no real sustainable brand that anyone would want to buy. And boy, does it make a difference. We have had plenty of examples where we've had businesses both selling almost exactly the same thing, both doing similar numbers, and one's got a fantastic brand identity, a legit relationship with their customers, and a clear future based on that. And one is just selling a bunch of stuff. And guess which one has the significantly higher multiple?
Yep.
Right. And so that doesn't just make a difference on the day you get paid. It makes a difference in the future as well, because of course you stick that money in a low, medium risk stocks and shares portfolio that grows at 7 or 8%. And over years, that's going to compound. And arguably the ones that are just selling stuff, not only will they sell for a low multiple, they might not even sell at all because no one wants to buy that.
Right. And that goes my question. I'm sure everyone's asking you, you're in this market where people are more selective. People need to understand more what they're looking for. We work with global brands all the time that have far surpassed, we've worked with the pharma packs of the world who were number one Amazon sellers in the entire world. Again, business model completely separate than what we're talking about today, but they are now no longer here. Or, they sold for bits and pieces and parts. But now you're talking about building a brand and building a global empire and people who are selling, goods all around the world. What is it that people are looking for if their exit? Is it that they're established in all these entities around the world? Is it because that they're in different sales channels, like their own direct to consumer website? What are the things that people are, high ranking value
Yeah.
for those brands?
We talk about something called the value pyramid, which is a model that we use to understand what the buyer wants, right? And at the base of that pyramid is brand, because without a brand, there is no hook. There's nothing to get anyone excited about. There's no waiting by the door for the delivery man to come. There's no holding off buying a competitor because everything has to be that brand. There's no tribe of evangelical fans waiting to buy the next product that you launch. And institutional buyers have come around to the idea that actually it's not just about buying cash flow. It's not just about buying stuff that's got a decent EBITDA. It's about buying something that's actually going to have sustainability into the future, because they've been burned and they've bought all the rubbish stuff already, and they understand that, right? Next is growth and profitability. Your business has to be profitable, clearly. Ideally, SDE or EBITDA margins north of 20%. 15 is kind of about the lowest. 10 is really at the bottom. And year-on-year growth margins need to be strong as well. And we need to be able to see, year-on-year growth trends need to be strong. And we need to see growth potential into the future. So opportunities for a buyer to grow it. That could be by adding more products that you've developed. That could be by going international, adding more channels. And so, the pyramid goes on. Above that, we're talking about risk. So a buyer doesn't want to buy something built on a house of cards, right? They want to buy something that's not just going to collapse after they bought it. So that means you're not selling fad products, dangerous products, things that are likely to become highly regulated. You're not partaking in black hat strategies. You're not selling on a website and literally all of your revenue is coming through like one Facebook ad or Facebook ads account.
Or one affiliate. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, shut down at any time, for instance. Whatever you can do to de-risk the business for a buyer will make them less anxious and more likely to buy it and more likely to pay more, right? And then above that, you've got documentation. So you need to have fantastic records of everything so that a buyer can pick up your business and drop it into their ecosystem. That's what they want. They don't want to take something complex that they have to figure out how to run. They want to take it, slot it into their setup, and go, right?
Yep.
And then above that, you've got legal. Everything needs to be neat and tidy from a legal perspective, and your financials and record keeping and all that kind of stuff.
So is there somebody, again, I won't ask you to name names. Are you seeing this emergence? I won't just even say aggregator. I would say more of there had to be that shift, right? It was a necessary that these businesses, you're seeing a lot of them condense. You're seeing a lot of them even not understand that concept that we just talked about at the beginning of the show of giving yourself permission or understanding the avatar, what you're selling to, and how to condense it and build it and replicate it of everything you're buying. It's a lot different than you starting your one brand or three brands and launching them. They're picking and having to do this in multiple different ways and smash them together and try to operate and build them all themselves. Is that shift happening, or is there still this like stagnate? People don't know what they're doing. They're kind of trying to figure it out as we're going. And it feels like, to me, I'm going to give my hot take, if you will. A lot of people are just pushing into retail. They're pushing into retail. That's the easiest way to go. Oh, this product did well on Amazon. I'm just going to throw it on a shelf somewhere, maybe Walmart or Target or whatever world, Winn-Dixie in the South. I don't care where. They're just pushing into retail.
Yeah.
Does that feel that lazy approach, or is that the way people have to grow?
It's not lazy. It's
not lazy.
Smart,
I'm saying, right?
it's smart. It's gonna in many cases that's gonna help.
Right.
I'm pleased to say that many of the institutional buyers, let's talk about aggregators right for a minute, and that's not a foregone conclusion that your business will be sold to an aggregator, and we certainly don't just sell businesses to aggregators.
Sure.
But the aggregators are getting better. Many of the existing old school aggregators who've survived have taken some time to reflect, right? They realized that, this is not as easy as we thought it was going to be. You can't just hammer a square peg into a round hole. Brands that we bought, yeah, exactly, with a huge hammer.
To add to that.
Yeah, brands that we bought during this easier time are now more difficult to run because the environment has changed, and we've learned what we need to do in that environment, and we've learned that we need to hire the talent and listen to the people who built the brands in the first place. Many of them are doing that. A lot of them still aren't, right? Unfortunately. And some of them are doing it kind of all right, but it's not ideal. However, I'm also pleased to say there's been an emergence of new aggregators in the space who rather than just being people who say, oh, we could raise a bunch of money and roll up these brands, they're actually e-commerce people first. And they've said, look, we can demonstrate our e-commerce capabilities, then go to investors, and they're going to back our horse in the race because they know that we know what we're doing and we've actually got the operational chops and we're treating these businesses like legit brands. Those are the exciting aggregators that I love to work with.
Awesome. Yeah, and I love cheering for them. I've been a proponent of I've laughed at myself going back to past episodes that we've talked with aggregators, that just hearing the same kind of cadences in the ear of like, oh yeah, we love it. We love branding, building a brand. Like we operate. This is how we do. We are Amazon to our core. And then they shutter, or it on paper, it just doesn't match up with what they talk about. But I want to root for those things because that's what's needed for this entrepreneur journey, for people to, exit a brand like you did, or if they want to build a global brand, they want to sell it off to a private equity firm, or they just want to see it grow, and those people can take them there because of their, superpower of raising capital, or, scaling quick, or whatever it might be. But kind of in the last half of, or, I say last couple of minutes, it's not all sunshine and rainbows, and I want to ask you your kind of thoughts around this. Building a brand's tough, and I know the dark side. We've kind of talked about, like, it's ups and downs. It's difficult. It's building a business. It's not easy, but there's a lot of loneliness in the entrepreneur journey. There's a lot of, you're not engaged with people. You might be behind a computer all day. A lot of people seem to seek out, those in-person events and conferences and networking in order just to engage with people in the space. What's that ecosystem like, and how do we, make people feel more connected, if you will?
Absolutely. And it's something I understand well because I am from a corner of Northeast Scotland where there's plenty of business, but there's not that many entrepreneurs in e-commerce doing this type of thing. So I was fortunate in the early days in that I found people online and I was added into various groups, whether they were Facebook groups or Messenger chat groups or WhatsApp groups. That's kind of the first tier, if you like, right? Then what you really want to be doing is doing calls with like-minded people. So find people within those groups that are at a similar level to you who can help you, and actually have regular chats on Zoom calls or Google Meet or whatever. And then the next tier is meetups. Try to find local-ish meetups, and if you can't, make some time in your calendar to go to meetups a little bit further afield, whether that's a train ride away or a drive away or a flight away. And then go to events, go to the conferences. The presentations are often great if the speakers are high quality, but the real magic happens at the networking, the dinners, the parties, the coffee breaks. I was recently at an event in February, like I said, in Cape Town. It was organized by Kaylee Bendel from eClimb. The presentations were great. But what I really enjoyed was the, because we were there for several days, and some people afterwards actually went on safari. I couldn't make it. I wish I could. But what I loved was the lunches and the dinners, and the breakfasts in the hotels, where we talked shop, exchanged ideas, and even brainstormed how to work through people's individual problems, right, that they were facing in their business. That's where the magic happens, and that's where you can get away from the loneliness. And it really makes a difference.
Do you have any, like, what was the most frustrating thing? I mean, you still are a brand, and you said you have partners. What's the most frustrating thing of is it just not being able to have that, like, face to face, or like, hey, I can, like, go down the hall into an office or engage with you and talk about that? What for your perspective, what's the worst part of kind of working, quote unquote, alone? I mean, you have kids down the hall. I love going out and talking with my wife and, just stepping away. But
I think it's not being able to, like, for example, when I was at Seller Sessions last week, I met my business partner, Mark, who he lives, 500 miles from me. So when we can meet up together and just, have a coffee and talk about it's the same thing we would have spoken about on Zoom, but the dynamic is different. The interaction is different. You can look each other in the eye properly. I feel like the productivity of that is way better than online, which is why it's important to make time for these things. For sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's something that not many people think about when they go into this. They work harder. People step away, or they try to build a business just to not work a 9 to 5. And there's aspects that you miss with that if it's not going to an office, but you're working for yourself. And you realize, oh man, I'm working for just me, myself. So there's
Yeah.
a lot of dependency financially, but also just
Oh yeah.
social
Pressure can
engagement.
really get to you. I mean, Tim Jordan posted on LinkedIn the other day about the prevalence of mental health issues among entrepreneurs being higher than the general population. I am
I saw that. Yeah.
absolutely not surprised. Um, though I would say that there are some parts of that it kind of it relates to some of our superpowers in a way. Like I think that the thing, whatever it is that wires our brains that makes us entrepreneurs, also is probably some of the same genes. He says, as a complete neurology and gene expert thing. Um, some of the same genes that make us entrepreneurs probably also predispose us to
Yeah.
it's not just the environment of entrepreneurship that causes these issues. I reckon it's partly how we're wired. And so what we have to do is we just have to design our business and our lives appropriately to protect us as much as we can, which means having work-life balance, taking breaks, taking the opportunity to meet people, giving yourself a break, and remembering that, we can't all be Elon Musk working like 1,000 hours a week.
Yeah. Oh, it was, yeah. What it was like sleep 3 hours a night. It was something crazy. I saw that statistic
Yeah,
pop
yeah.
up
I
on
mean, but
Twitter.
don't get me wrong. Like the world needs people like him, regardless of let's not get political. But the world needs entrepreneurs like him, because they affect enormous change.
Yeah. I mean, they're moving a lot of, people to, even if the people don't agree with them, those people are not going to go out and build businesses. Those are people
Oh
going to
yeah,
change
totally.
different, ecosystems in their own right. Which is why you see a lot of people exit businesses. You see a lot of people start their own companies or agencies or whatever it might be. That's kind of the beauty of this is if you're pushed in that direction, like you said, give yourself permission, not let other people like
Yep.
tell you what to do. It's give yourself permission to do that. Um, I know we're close to already the hour. I love talking with you. I can talk with you all day, man. It needs to happen more often, and we'll surely meet in person soon. What's
Yeah.
going on? I would be remiss if we did it in
Yeah.
this episode if we didn't talk about your book, which is coming out in October, which I'm really excited about for you.
Thanks,
Tell
man.
me why write a book? I'm curious.
It's
Seems
the book
tough.
it's the book I didn't have when I started. It's a guide on e-commerce, entrepreneurship, and brand building for someone who's been there and done it and is doing it again.
Yeah.
It's unlike other books in the space. It won't go out of date when the technology changes, because it's based on timeless principles. Yeah, there's examples from things that I've done using technology that I've used, but the principles will always stand the test of time. So it's a roadmap for giving permission for anyone with an idea to turn it into a successful brand and probably eventually sell it. It's useful for someone who's got an idea. It's useful for someone who's started but needs a bit of a guide. And I think there'll be value in there too for people who are doing, 6, 7, and 8 figures, but need something to come back to make sure that they've got the basics right and the principles right. For example, I still read The E-Myth by Michael Gerber like twice a year, and that's probably for beginners. So the book's called Quit Stalling and Build Your Brand. And it's out in October, and you can join the waitlist at benleonard.pro/book.
Got it down there in the name, title, or tag, or byline, whatever we were calling these things with StreamYard coming out with. But I'm super excited to read it. If you need someone to read the audio version, I'm gonna be my first to raise my hand and do that. But unless you do it yourself, that's always fun. When you hear people read their own books.
Yeah,
But
I'm debating that internally right now, whether I'm going to do it myself.
do I read my own book? Yeah, exactly. Sometimes it feels weird to speak your own words out loud and instead of writing them on a page. That's very cool. How was that something your family pushed you to, or you wanted? Is this like a personal project? I'm curious.
Funny, a
Like,
few people in my family mentioned to me a couple of years ago, you should write a book. And it was about this time
did you
last
take them
year.
seriously? Like people, I
No,
would say like all the time
no,
are like, "Oh, you should write a book
no.
about this." You're like, "Yeah, right, whatever you
But it
say."
was about this time last year that I decided to do it. And I'm a decent writer because I have an academic background.
Sure.
So being able to there's a big difference between able to write a scientific paper and being able to write an environmental consultancy report and writing a business book. But it's like kind of like I said before, if you've got some gray cells between your ears, you can take your idea and turn it into a great business. If you're a half decent writer, you can take the time, get it right, and work with a great editor to get your ideas onto paper and write a book.
Love that. That's awesome, man. Congrats on all the success, building new brands, launching new brands. I'm excited about the projects you're putting in. We can't release those names or titles yet, but cool industries, and those are competitive categories to be in. So best of luck in all of that.
Thanks, man. I'm totally open about my brands. So when those things are ready to talk about, I will be the first to share, because I believe that thought leaders in the space should share their brands.
And consistently still either share or be in Seller Central or sell, and constantly learning too. If we're not
100%.
learning, we're not growing. So Ben, thank you so much for hopping on today. Appreciate all the time. Best of luck again, and we'll catch each other again soon, I'm sure. But thanks for coming on Crossover Commerce. Or excuse me, that was my last podcast, the Global Spin. I knew I was going to do that today, Global Spin podcast. So thanks for coming on.
Cheers, man.
All right, thanks. And then everyone, thanks for coming on again, the Global Spin podcast. It was going to happen. It only took 4 episodes for us to do this today. For me to flub up on the name. This is the Global Spin podcast. My name is Ryan Kramer. We're live on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Twitter. When we go in and kind of produce all these episodes, it's nothing that we like to hide behind editing. It's something we'll do recaps with. If you're a fan, make sure you subscribe to our channels, either on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. We release the audio versions. You can just search for the Global Spin podcast, or you can search me. And then we're also on LinkedIn too. So we'll be posting about that. And we're growing this podcast. I did 250 episodes. The last podcast I did. It takes time, people. It takes at an hour a piece. That's a lot of talking to people. So we hope you gain some insight, some information from Ben. Thank you so much. Go to Ben Leonard Pro /book for his book and waitlist. And then go ahead and check him out on LinkedIn as well. Such a fantastic individual to follow. Great thought leader. I call him a thought leader because he's always open and honest and sharing all of his information. So very, very truthful person on LinkedIn. So make sure you follow him there. But I'm Ryan Kramer. This has been the Global Spin podcast. I hope to catch you guys on the next episode. We'll be talking with Andrew Morgan. Actually, this Thursday. I don't have a little teaser clip, but this Thursday we'll be going ahead and talking with him. He's the co-founder and CEO of Markenology. So go ahead and schedule your calendars, circle that date, and we'll catch you guys next time on another episode of the Global Spin podcast. Take care.